Hello, race fans. This is Denny Miller, and this is Indy 500 Yesteryear. And today, with Speedway Insiders Paul Page, Bob Gates, and myself, and this is going to be a dynamic show as we recap what happened at Road America this past weekend, exciting times, and look a little bit about some of the major historical events that happened at that famed racetrack. And we were applauded very much for our highlighting the four-time Indy 500 winners, AJ Foyt, Al Unser, Rick Mears, and Helio Castroneves. One person even said, would you please talk more about them or something? Well, sure, we're going to be talking a lot about Foyt and Castroneves and everyone, but this will begin our series of three-time winners, and we start with Dario Franchitti and a look at his three wins as well. And with that, interesting weekend. Some people are almost unanimous. That's their favorite of all road race courses.
For me, it's kind of Laguna and Elkhart Lake.
Yeah.
So I haven't been to Road Atlanta in the longest time, but I kind of like that.
Has anyone been to Watkins Glen?
Yes.
I have.
You think, I can remember the F1 days there, and do you see there ever return to Watkins Glen again? I'd like to see it on the IndyCar schedule just because of the historic nature and that demographic on the East Coast. What do you think?
I keep hearing many people that would like to see IndyCars
Right.
at Watkins Glen, but I don't know that Watkins Glen or the promoters are interested at this point. And that's the key. It's not,
as Jim Neighbors would say, surprise, surprise, I guess.
right. IndyCar are just not able to call a promoter and say, hey, we'd like to put on a race there. But I think like Road America, Elkhart Lake, just such a historic and scenic track. It'd be neat to see IndyCar back there just for that reason.
I hope so on that. One of the highlights of this, Joseph Newgarden won make sure I get it right, People Ready Force for Good $1 million bonus. And I think this is a great idea. If someone could win on a road course, a street course, and an oval, they would win $1 million bonus, half of which goes to charity and half of which goes to the team. Newgarden had won at Texas and Long Beach on the street course and on the oval, and all he needed was a road course, and he got it this weekend. I know who the two charities were, but were you disappointed, Bob, that it wasn't the Bob Gates Princess Cruise charity that wasn't recipient for half of
right now? I'm disappointed that I didn't share it in that prize money. That is a seriously neat idea.
Yeah.
And I think it just emphasizes, the real talent and the real season that Joseph Newgarden is having. I think there comes a time in each season, and I think Paul can verify this, that one driver seems to separate themselves from the rest of the field. You have a lot of favorites for the championship, then all of a sudden somebody separates himself from the rest of the field and what they accomplish. And other than not winning the 500, that's Joseph Newgarden at this point.
But at this point, we're still in an iffy championship fight. There's still plenty of time left.
Oh yeah.
But you're right, Bob. Every now and then you'll see just one driver just surge ahead. And I think it's the confidence of winning a couple of races, because, we've always said when you win your first race, now you're going to win your second, your third, because you know how to do it.
Right.
But that seemed like a pretty formidable run.
Yeah.
Of course, it was a lot of strategy in that thing. I kept trying to keep track of everything, and I couldn't. Yeah, those yellows at the start, which beyond me why that was a problem.
Right.
And I haven't talked to anybody who can tell me, but those kind of confused the strategies. And well, the Penske organization knows how to deal with those kind of things, and Tim Cindric did very well in doing that.
Yeah, they seem to have a handle on all that for sure. Works out in their favor most of the time.
Yep.
For those who did not see the final results, Joseph Newgarden did win, and he won the $1 million bonus. Marcus Ericsson, this year's Indy 500 winner, finished second, and because of trouble amongst some of the other front runners, he has jumped back to the points lead. A real promising run for Alexander Rossi again and finishing third. I think he was probably a little disappointed after setting on the pole like he did. Grosjean responded well after being a little bit victim of crashes and some previous things with fourth. Herta fifth, Rosenquist sixth, McLaughlin seventh, and I think a minor story, but kind of a telling story is Graham Rahal finishing eighth. That's the first signs that ship might be riding a little bit.
Right.
That would be great. That would be great.
Yeah, Dixon slid to ninth, and Christian Lundgaard, which no one's really been talking about, is really becoming the anchor, the 20-year-old Dane for Rahal. And my lot was 11th, but he's been crashing a lot. Lundgaard, I don't think has ever put a wheel crosswise yet, and just
he's had a solid
running Rahal and Jack Harvey in a way. So I think he needs to be applauded for that. The biggest storyline, though, from my opinion, is the willpower Devin DeFrancesco encounter, and the fellow willpower kind of returned to the Dick the Bruiser-ish type of days again.
We do know that he headed over for DeFrancesco's pits, and he was still pretty steamed when he came out of the car. Yeah. What we don't know is whether or not he actually got to him, which I suspect he didn't.
All right. Bobby, want to tell the story about what happened on that encounter?
Well, they had a couple of encounters. Let's just keep it simple throughout the race. DeFrancesco is, he seems to be very talented, as far as that Andretti group, but he seems to be maybe a little overly aggressive in some of the moves he attempts, and it ruined Will's race for sure. And then, like you say, I think they had some encounters. They probably had a come to Jesus meeting at some point, if not on the cool down lap after the race. I think Will put a hip.
Power runs into him. In past days, that would have been a fine or something. I didn't hear of anything being said as far as cost him money or probation or anything like that.
I totally disagree with that concept. Let them fight.
Right.
It's good for TV. And it brings us back to the 50s and 60s, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Or certainly the Allison's versus Cale Yarborough.
All that, yeah.
Donnybrook,
for sure.
Like that.
Now that
for
put
those who don't
NASCAR on
know,
the map.
that was at the end of the Daytona 500 years ago when Donnie
77,
Allison tangled with Cale Yarborough, and Bobby got out to help brother Donnie, and it was, at least they had their helmets on, so it was but
that put NASCAR on the map, that's for
yes,
sure.
it did.
Yeah.
But I agree. Willpower needs to be willpower, and
well, I think, don't you think he's doing that? I mean, he's strong again. And he's really in pursuit of everybody else again. I'd really love to watch him drive now. He's back in his form.
Well, he was after the last week. I thought the early season on, he was just more Ted Horn-like and just kind of content to get in the top 5 type of a drive. But he wasn't as strong at Road America as he was the previous week, but he was going to have a good point day, and it got messed up. However, to DeFrancesco's point of view, the corner before or something like that, he kind of got the squeeze if it looked like that. So I guess, maybe he figured, it's kind of payback or something like that too.
Yeah, don't do that on the track. Do it in the pits.
Yeah. There you
Yes.
go.
So
Well, another one-
particularly in an open wheel car and everything.
Yeah.
Paul mentioned Will Power being fun to watch, and I agree, getting fun to watch again. I think another is Rossi.
Yes.
Yeah, he ended up third, and maybe, he was odds-on favorite to win, to be quite honest, but
Mhm.
still ended up third. But he's really fun to watch again. He's
Mhm.
got that fire. He's going after the lead. He is doing everything that he used to, and that's neat to see on his part.
Well, in 2019, Rossi dominated that race, and I was expecting a similar type performance. In a way, there might have been a bit of a disappointment with the third place finish.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, they had one, the first pit stop, I think they lost 2 seconds at that point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that made him play catch up all day. And as Paul said, the Penske's know how to work that strategy, and it just worked perfectly for Newgarden.
Yeah, I think on the final laps there, I think some people were really forced in fuel saving as well. I
Yeah.
don't have any outright evidence to that, but it seems to me that that was also what was going on. They all had to get to the end. To
Right.
finish first, you must first finish.
Yeah.
That's Rick
true.
Mears. I give him credit for that.
Yeah, it looks like Andretti, the team has gotten their mojo back. All the Andrettis ran strong, and at some point, even the kid that we were just talking about, DeFrancisco,
Yeah.
he was running strong.
But I'm a little surprised that Herta has not been stronger than he has been doing the last couple of times out. I don't know if the getting upside down at Indy has changed or not, but up until, remember, we were doing the crystal ball that he'd be the one to beat at Indy in the 500. That was before the carb
Yeah.
day, and he's been okay. I mean, most people would be content to have that, but it hasn't been Colton Hertish by any means, I don't think.
Yeah.
Well, you may have a point in regards to it getting upside down, although, no driver admits that it's gotten to him, and he may not know that it's gotten to him, but in many cases it has. So,
Mhm.
and he has not really performed all that hot since then. So,
Yeah.
that could well be the cause. I don't know that it is. I get a chance, I'm going to ask him, and he's going to hit me.
Yeah,
No,
I think
he wouldn't do that.
No.
You're a Hall of Famer now. He would not.
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, it could subtly be affecting, as Paul implied there, his driving. Although, he's in a band, he has a band, which is playing in the Indianapolis area, maybe yet this month. But part of the ad they ran for the band is him upside down in his Indy car. So I think it's helping the band. I'm not sure about his driving.
Well, didn't Kenny Brack used to play in a band as well?
Yeah.
That's part of being an IndyCar driver. You gotta love music. Do you
Yeah,
hear
I
anything
think-
more?
I was going to say, I think he is still playing music. Kenny Brack.
Mhm.
Yeah. Last I heard he was, yeah.
The rumor.
Can I tell you a Kenny Brack story that just
Would
I
love to
really
hear a
really
Kenny
enjoyed
Brack
this. I was doing the Summer X Games, and they had multiple surface race with a jump in it, and Kenny Brack came and performed in that race. But I was up watching practice, which was all on the paved section, and these guys had come around. I mean, he's got it all twisted up, the regular competitors, and sliding and making smoke and all that. And then comes Kenny Brack very quietly. And the guy next to me says, "Well, I don't know what's wrong with Brack. Look at those other guys." I said, "Have you timed him? I mean, he's driving so smooth. He's going to nail them all." And he did.
No, I always wondered what Breck would have accomplished had there not been Texas.
Mhm.
and
That was horrible looking
accident.
too.
Yeah,
Right.
that was how he survived that. It was neat to see him come back and get in the Buddy Rice car when after Rice got hurt and set quick time.
Mhm.
But after that, he never returned to Indy. Maybe he proved his point there that he could still do it and didn't want to do it anymore. But
Right.
you hate to lose an Indy 500 winner in the field.
Yeah.
Hey, rumor mill though, I'm hearing, with Rossi now going to McLaren, how safe is Rosenquist? He finished sixth, but some are saying VK could be penciled in there. Some are even saying, would they be able to pry Pillow away? And that'd almost be a super team in its 21st century version if they would have Award, Rossi, and Pillow.
See,
Right.
I think there you're getting to the whole point of what IndyCar is doing right now. It's not trying to protect yourself with a guy that can just drive. Everyone that's available is awesome. And that creates a whole new problem for many of the owners.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a talented field.
Yeah.
Just the young guy, who was it that finished 11, Denny?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Colin Ayala.
Yeah, a couple of guys there we haven't heard very little about, but yet they're performing very, very well. It just shows you how strong the entire field is.
Oh, I think he's going to be snapped up by a team. He's that good, and he comes across well, very, very well in interviews. A charming British person.
Mhm.
His heart may be and doing a year or two here, and then going back and running F1. Though that's would be my guess. But and he must have money or connections to money to be in the ride he is, because that's
Right.
kind of the business plan that Ricardo uses at Junko. So, but I thoroughly expect him. The trouble is where though, there's not that many great rides open.
Well as Kirkwood's been doing, that's turned some eyes towards Foyt's number 14 car. And I understand there's a lineup of drivers, that's got their name in the hat for that ride.
Who are they? Have you heard, Bob?
No, I really haven't heard.
But yeah, it's nice to see Foyt getting back. I'm trying to think. Tatiana, I don't see staying unless Rocket really wants her there. I don't know. I don't think they would go with Hildebrand full time, even though it'd be good if they did give JR. But you're going to see with Ericsson's success and Grosjean's success, I think some very talented 30-some-year-old F1 drivers who have connections with money or companies coming over and wanting to run Indy as well.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing anyone's name in particular, but that wouldn't surprise me.
Mhm.
If Norris was not doing so well with McLaren, I see him running Indy one day.
Well, he may.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys, I think, they look for their world championship, and then they want to fill out the portfolio by winning Indy.
Mhm.
So I don't know if it's going to require a win and then he comes, a world championship, but I think many of the F1 guys actually look over to what they're doing at the Indy 500. Maybe not the series, but certainly the Indy 500, as we saw with Alfonso. And then you've got McLaren in the series, and Zach Brown, for a while, he lived here. And then when he decided to go back to England with McLaren, he was with McLaren then, but he certainly has a place in his heart for Indianapolis and the Indy 500 as well.
Do you see Alonso returning after he's finished with his year or two of the F1 contract?
Wow, you had to give me that one, didn't you, Bob?
Oh, it goes to both of you. I'd love to see him return.
I'll put it this way. I'm sure he would like to do Indy again, Alonso, and most likely will if all the pieces fall into place. He enjoyed his time here and did well one year anyway, even though he got bumped another.
I
Very
wonder,
likable guy, though. He was so
Yeah.
great with the fans. And you know what? A lot of people talk about the uppityness of Formula One drivers. And yet when they come to the United States, I've never seen one with his nose in the air.
Yeah,
Right. You
that's
can go
true.
back to Eddie Cheever and Jimmy Clark and all the way back.
Right.
They come over here and I think they're kind of relieved a little bit at the lack of tension in this atmosphere as opposed to in the Formula One.
Yeah. Well, Grosjean has just been so vocal, and I'm sure
Yeah.
he's spreading the word all over Europe how much he enjoys the running Indy cars, how much he enjoys America, his time here, and how much he enjoys being competitive. And those guys are all race car drivers, no matter what. And race car drivers want to win. Just like you mentioned, Denny Rossi not being satisfied with or disappointed with third place. Yes. Race car drivers dissatisfied anytime they don't win. Now they might have qualified not too well and had difficulties leading up to race time, and then end up with a good race where they finish second and third, and they're sad, they're okay, but it's not winning, and winning is really what it's all about.
and carrying that one step further, we call it the Jimmy Johnson effect now, as strong as he ran at Indy this year. That might entice Kyle Busch to come, or certainly Kyle Larson wants to come, a stream of some NASCAR bigger names to come as well. I just absolutely love the 1966 and 67 Indy 500s when the great F1 champions were coming. You had Hill and Clark and Jackie Stewart, plus you had Cale Yarborough and Leroy Yarborough coming from
NASCAR.
Denny Holm came, and I remember the excitement that I had to see Lorenzo Bandini come in 67. And then a couple of weeks before he was to come, he critically burned and died from those burns at Monaco. But it was just a great era, and I'd love to see that happen again. I don't see the marquee names come. I don't see Hamilton, Verstappen, and them coming like Clark and Stewart, but I think you're going to see that middle layer that just are not content to run 16th and 14th or 9th or whatever consistently, and come over here and do like Grosjean or Ericsson did.
Well, we got to talk Formula One into not running Monte Carlo against the Indy 500.
Well,
and they all can come.
If someone could do that, it's Roger Penske as well.
Yeah,
And,
exactly. I don't think that's doable. Well, it was on a different weekend a long time ago. But,
yeah, of course it was. So Elkhart Lake has been historic in many ways, and we want to talk about a couple of key injuries that occurred there. But before I do, I want to talk a little bit about how it was the place, almost like Talladega for stock cars. A driver in IndyCar or Champ Car could go there and score their first victory. Hector Bacchi won there. I'm trying to have a list somewhere of who some. Uncle Jack Villeneuve won in '85. Jacques Villeneuve won in '94. Franchitti '98. Christian Fittipaldi '99. Giancarlo in 2001, Tagliani in 2004, and get recently Rosenquist in 2020. What do you think it's about that track that is good that one can score their first win there? Is it the 4-point-some mile type of thing? What's your take on that, Paul? Why that's
I'm not sure. That track is so inviting to drive that I think maybe the newer guys feel comfortable there. But as for putting an actual pin in the map on that, I don't understand that, but it is necessarily true. I mean, you just read the list. So but Road America. I attended Road America when it still had the old wooden, not a pagoda, but pretty close, and bridge out from the pagoda, and that was almost over the crest of the hill, and it still had the Formula One style booths there too, and you know, that's just you go that history like that, and then of course one of the greatest drivers of all time had his first driver's school there in a Lotus 51 Formula Ford. Great guy.
Well, I almost forgot to say we dedicate this weekly to our dear friend Robin Miller, which leads to the question, how many wins did Robin Miller finally uncover that you won at Elkhart Lake, Paul?
Well, of course, what you're talking about is the fact that the crews used to torment Robin by telling him each week, well, you know, Page won another one, and then on and on and on. And finally, he paid money to get all those sheets away from the SCCA and everything, only to find out that I'd never won anything, and I never won anything.
Well,
Yeah.
how about, was there ever a pay-per-view discussion, maybe because they were doing Thursday Night Thunder, of you and Robin Miller doing a match race?
Oh, that would have been a hoot. That would have been a lot of fun. You know, Jack Arute and I did that in the Legends cars, so that would have been a good vehicle to have that kind of thing in.
So
yeah,
That
also
Robin would just run over me unless I ran over him first.
right.
But Elkhart Lake kind of, or very easily, could have snuffed out two people lives. In 1990 was where AJ Foyt suffered such a serious injury. You were covering that race, Paul. You want to take us back to that? And was there stuff that you knew that was happening that you were not saying on the air? The behind the scenes, the backstory to all that Foyt accident.
If I remember correctly, that was a tape delay race, and so we were calling it, and the accident happened, and we now were able to get all the way in with the cameras, something we wouldn't do if we would have been live. So we, as the announcers in the booth, could evaluate the situation, and I remember a number of things about it. Brian Herta came up to the booth. He wasn't racing, and he came up to the booth and sat with us. But the thing I remember most is we had stopped announcing because the producer said so. And then maybe 5 minutes later, I hear the producer virtually screaming, "We are on the air on international, keep talking." And I have no idea what we said in that 5 minutes, but nobody ever brought it up again. So maybe we didn't offend anybody.
But
Well, it was a devastating crash that Foyt was in, and you mentioned Robin Miller. So through Robin, Foyt told Robin that he remained conscious throughout that ordeal. You know, after he crashed, he was still conscious while they were trying to dig him out of the car. Thought his leg was gone at one point. It was so embedded in the earth. But he was in so much pain, he was begging, you know, medics, give me something or hit me in the head with a wheel.
His solution to everything.
Yeah. Right. So he remained conscious during that whole ordeal. So that was tough on him.
were you aware that he was hurt that bad, Paul?
Oh, yeah. If we didn't know, we at that time on the circuit, they would give us numbers, which were codes for the seriousness of the situation, so that we could adjust the broadcast accordingly. I think we're pretty much always ahead of them, but yeah, they just kept coming down with things that didn't make you feel good about what was going on there. And then the time in the rescue it seemed forever. If there's a light side to that, it is that in the hospital, he was here in Methodist Hospital to recuperate. If ladies would come in, and he talked to them pleasantly, but his left leg was the bad leg, and that was up in a sling, and it had some external pins and stuff, kind of things in it, wires. And so he'd sit there and kind of pick at the scabs if somebody was there. Quick way to get him out of there.
Right, right.
You didn't think it was a fatal, did you? That accident?
At first, I was worried that it was.
Okay.
And I guess the only thing that convinced me it wasn't was the rescue team's reaction when they got there. They were scrambling. So you're scrambling to rescue. If somebody is fatal and in the cockpit, something like that, you will see a slightly different movement by the entire team. They know they still have to address it, as with Greg Moore we've talked about. But you just sense a change in the demeanor of the rescuers, and what I saw was guys doing their best to figure out how to get them out of that car.
Mhm.
Well, Bob, didn't he hurtle clear over the gravel pit
Yeah,
and went clear over? That really didn't even help slow his car down or something.
Well, they didn't have to rake it afterwards.
no.
Apparently, a brake pedal broke going in the fastest section of the track and everything. And
Yeah, it was like a missile when it left the track over the gravel pit. Like I said, it embedded itself in the earth bank or into the ground. So, yeah.
now that was September of 1990. And then what happens in May of 1991? Does that
I don't
end
know.
Foyt's career? He said he'd be back, and then he qualifies in the middle of the front row, and probably by far the greatest front row ever at Indy, with mirrors on the pole, Foyt in the middle, and Mario Andretti on the outside of the front row.
That could
And
be
he also-
argued that. For
He
sure.
also did that when he got hurt at Riverside in the stock car race in January of '65,
I didn't know that.
and comes back and sets on the pole in Indy in May of '65. So
Are you that old, Denny?
I just read a lot. Just read a lot, and particularly some outstanding books. I haven't got a chance to read your book yet, Paul. I'm
Man,
excited about
what
reading
is wrong with you?
because you said it wasn't available. It was sold out and everything.
It is available at Barnes and Noble online.
Oh, okay. And tell us again what it is.
It's hello, I'm Paul Page, and it's race day in Indianapolis. And out in your area of the country, in Burbank, Auto Books still has copies, and those are signed copies. So go buy one.
And they probably have some of their Krispy Kreme donuts and stuff too.
Yeah, that's the greatest place in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, it
And
is.
Tina, I'll put a shout in for her again. It's just one of the greatest people and everything. If you go in, spend 5 or 10 minutes chatting with her, she's an ideal person to chat with. Bob, what books sells the biggest now for you of your books?
Probably Vukovich was the biggest seller as far as that goes. But I just wanted to add about Paul's book. It is a very good book as well. I enjoyed it immensely. But yeah, Vukovich probably my biggest seller. Part of that was because Bill Vukovich Jr. still had his health about him, and he sold a lot of books himself for me. So that, in fact, we joked that he made more money selling that book than I did. So
this is not really part of the script, but I don't even know this. What made you choose to write the Vukovich book?
well,
Is that like Everest? It was there and it had to be done type of?
he always fascinated me. I was very, very young when he died. I'm emphasizing that in 1955, but I do remember it, and it was just he just always fascinated me. And part of the fascination, I think, as I grew older, was there this very little known about him. He was at his time, he was not only one of the most well-known race car drivers, one of the most well-known sports figures of his day. And magazines like the old Collier magazine and Life magazine and besides Sports Illustrated and all did multiple stories about him. At the same time, despite all that fame, he seemed to care little about it. It was hard pressed for a reporter to do an interview with him, for instance.
Well,
And so I think that's part of the fascination. He was a mysterious individual, but came to Indianapolis and just dominated the way he did.
it had let's say that not been a fatal accident, and he would have just been injured and decided, I'm close to 40 now, I'm retiring, I escaped this. Would he have that bigger than life persona as just a two-time Indy winner?
Maybe
Or
not.
did it take going after three in a row and the
Right.
way it ended to give it that just absolute bigger than life type of
Right. I think it was a little bit older individual, but very much like a James Dean individual. You know, seemingly you knew nothing about him. Boom, he was winning the 500 and spoke about and a celebrity everywhere. And then boom, he was gone. Just that quickly. Again, same way with James Dean.
Well, and then the other, getting back to Road America, the other real talented race car driver that's career effectively ended there was Cristiano Demata. And he came up with that era when Elio Castroneves and Tony Kanaan were all young, and he won the, I believe, 2002 kart championship. Impressive enough, he went to race Formula One for 2 years, then returns to drive champ cars in for a season, then has a very unusual and almost fatal accident at Elkhart Lake. Bob, you want to share that strange incident?
Yeah, well, he
Basically ended his career.
Yeah, he was testing in August, and it wasn't during a race weekend, but a deer, of all things, ran in front of him, and he struck the deer. If you can imagine that, if you've ever seen a passenger car that's hit a deer, you know what kind of destruction they can do with something that weighs twice as much as an Indy car. So it was a very, very devastating accident, and he did come back to race some, not the same as he was, but he was out almost 2 years, if I remember right. Is that right, Paul?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was. In fact, I think the deer wound up in the cockpit with him and everything. That force of coming in. But he never did approach getting into a champ car again after that.
Right.
And
I remember him as kind of a small guy, slight build, often looking down with kind of a sly smile. That's the image I have whenever we mention that name. And he was a good person.
Well, there was a time in the early days, who was better, Kanaan, Castroneves, or Demata? You know, because they're all three young, and
take your pick.
That was almost take your pick type of a thing. So
right.
It was one of those. I guess he survived, so that's good. But it ended his career. So Foyt's career could have ended and didn't, and I guess that's typical of AJ Foyt to be able to come back like he did, and it ended Demata's. So we finished the series on the 4-time winners, and this time we're going to now drop down to the 3-time winners, and we're going with Dario Franchitti as our featured person on this episode. Dario won in a rain shortened race in 2007. I think he made a mistake going to leaving IndyCar to go race NASCAR in 2008, and quickly, I think he thought he made a mistake too and came back and was tied in with Chip Ganassi and just had an unbelievable run from 2009 to 2012. Winning consecutive driving championships in 2009, 2010, and 2011, winning the 2010 and 2012 Indianapolis 500. I love the 2007 race and what all the potential that could have unfolded in that race. What do you remember? What's some of the highlights that stand out to you, Paul, of the 2007 race?
Oh, you did that to me, didn't you? I've told you a million times. If it's a week after the Indy 500, I still don't remember it. And certainly, if you get, I'm honest about that. I really have trouble with the years, but I have one of these.
Well, what I liked about it, though, was the fact that Kanaan and Marco Andretti and they were teammates, were very close, and there had been a yellow, and Marco was in the lead, and rain was coming on, and it would have been an official race. And when they went green, Kanaan, with his great skill, passes him going into turn one. And very soon then it rains and it shuts down the race for over 3 hours. Very easily could have been called like had been the precedent in other years. And Tony Kanaan would have been the 2007 Indy 500 winner. Instead, 3 hours later, the track dries and they resume the race, and just chaos happens after that too. The thing that I find amazing was they knew a second rain was coming, and they had just basically gone green, and there was then an accident on the backstretch, and Marco has this violent flip involved with Dan Weldon. And obviously I'm surprised they didn't go red on that, but they kept it yellow, and again the rains came. But what helped win that for Franchitti was he and Dixon had stayed out under the previous yellow, and then third place was Elio Castroneves, and fourth place was Sam Hornish, and some of the others that were just reeling them in like a bass. And into the yellow flag. So there could have been a lot of different winner scenarios to that race. Does that help, Paul? Is that refresh memory? Yeah. Well, that's
No,
but it was great. I'm one that always likes to see the race go the 500 miles. I don't like to be interrupted by rain, but so many intriguing different factors play into it.
At the time, I thought that was a very good call for them. They stopped the race after 113 laps, I believe, and which could have been an official race at that point. Yeah. But they decided to try to drive the track and try to get the race in, which I thought that was a good call. You always want to see the race go full distance if at all possible, but like Denny said, then end up raining again and coming up short of what they run 164
laps, something like that.
Yeah,
I don't think back then. I was glad to see it, but I don't think Franchitti was necessarily thought of as a real front runner to win Indy. So it was a bit of a surprise. He even wouldn't have been the top driver on the Andretti team of those. And also that day was the final race for Michael Andretti. And Andretti was kind of in the hunt and then pitted, and that dropped him down as well. Not as strong as the previous year where he should have or could have won the 2006 race. But I was surprised that as strong as he ran in 2007, he announced his retirement. How about you, Bob? Did that come as out of left field to you?
I don't think it was out of left field. No, he came back after all the problems with the split, and then got to run Indy a couple more times. And I think he just felt it was ready. I'm not sure if he was starting to get involved with ownership at that point or not. I think he was maybe just on a
Well,
very
he
low level.
owned
And
the, I don't know if by then it was Andretti Autosports. It certainly was Andretti Green.
Right.
Even though
Yeah.
Barry Green really wasn't involved in
And-
it anymore, they kept the name. That's how they got Franchitti, because he had been with Barry Green.
Yeah.
Well,
I've heard Mario say that for Michael, he was always as much, and I don't want to say more interested, but as much interested in the ownership in the business side of racing as he was in the competition side. So I think he was just ready to retire at that point.
Do we see any impact on his wreck at Houston? Did that get his attention as well?
Say that again.
Oh, you mean Franchitti?
Franchitti he had a wreck at Houston that was
Yeah.
pretty
Well,
devastating.
that ended his, as I understand it, he had a concussion before.
Mm.
And he got dinged pretty good. Plus, he had a broken back before, and he broke a different part of his back. And I think he was told, one more thing like this, and you'd be in a wheelchair or something. But
It can be an incentive. That's definitely an incentive.
That's what happened to the 1955 pole winner Jerry Hoyt. He had got a pretty good concussion at Langhorne and came back and got his head hit at Oklahoma City, and that's what killed him. But a lot of people believe, had it not been for Langhorne, that would not have been that serious of an accident, or certainly wouldn't have caused his death. So I think Franchitti just realized that, to take the advice. I know it drove him nuts, because I was talking to him because you had that Castroneves going for 4 and he going for 4, who would be the first of the 4-time winners. And obviously he thought he would be, and then I kind of cheated him on it. But quite a, and also what made him even more colorful was his marriage to, at that time, Ashley Judd.
Yeah.
She got a lot of press time for that, and to her credit, really embraced IndyCar racing and
She
her
did.
husband's success. And
she also nursed him back to health.
Yeah.
After a serious accident. So
yeah, they were divorced by that point, if I remember correctly. And yeah, and I think that reflects on how serious the accident was, that Ashley showed up to see if she could help. And they still cared about each other,
but
it happens.
My God, Franchitti survived 2 horrific looking crashes. I think it was in Michigan. He got flipped clear over with Scott Dixon or something. And then at the end of the Kentucky race, he took a hell of a flip too, and survived both of those. In a way, the Houston end of the fence was the tamest of the 3. I mean, it was all very graphic, but that's the one that seemed to do the biggest damage.
I know as late as 18 months ago, he was still having some problems with memory. Doing things like forgetting people's names, those types of things. So
did he ever forget your name, Bob?
How could he, right?
He didn't call you Paul, did he, by mistake?
Right. So it was, a very serious head injury, and the protocol, concussion protocol, was getting established, but still not overly, not very well established when Dario had his crash. They're still learning about concussions and some of the long-term problems of them.
Well, Roberto Guerrero had that serious head injury in 87 and was able to come back, but there's some people that think he was not quite Roberto Guerrero after that. And a little of that might have been the equipment that he was running as well.
Remember that he was in an induced coma for a long time,
almost
many days. I wish I knew the number of days, but yeah, it's
seems like it was 21, but I'm not quite sure, but it was somewhat lengthy like that. Well, Franchitti wins 2 more. By the way, all of Franchitti's 3 wins came under the yellow. In 2010, there was a great finish as everyone was running low on fuel and ducking in, and Franchitti was slowing down, and Weldon had a little more fuel to be able to reel him in. And then you had this horrendous crash on the last lap involving Ryan Hunter-Reay and Mike Conway. And how Conway survived that is a mystery. And better yet, how that didn't land in the cockpit of Ryan Hunter-Reay. You can Google that and go to YouTube, and it's horrific. And that was one of a couple of crashes that Conway took at Indy, and I could see why he did not like oval racing.
Right.
After, but to his credit, on a road course in not the best of cars, he was a potential race winner, and he did win a couple of races. I think he won Long Beach Grand Prix a couple of times.
Now, backing up to Dario for just a moment. One year, Ashley bought him a helicopter. He had, I guess, suggested that he'd really like to do that. And so at Indy, the TV people, I wasn't part of the crew at that time. In fact, Dario won all of his races after I left ABC. So maybe that's part of the reason I don't remember. But
Right.
But anyhow, he supposedly was, or he actually was, relegated to take Todd Harris of ABC, my replacement, up for a ride. And he knew me, and we were friends, and he understood about my helicopter crash and everything. And so he comes to me and says, I don't know, I'm not that good at this. And so he eventually did it. But the helicopter at first, if not always, made it pretty uncomfortable for him. So that was a nice gift, though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would be uncomfortable as well. Yeah, I think the thing that strikes me about Dario, and we were talking about this earlier with the European drivers, Formula One drivers coming here, and many times they come here without a full understanding of the legacy, the impact, the history of Indianapolis. And Dario was one of those by his own admittance, but he soon got really very caught up in the history of the Indianapolis 500, the legacy of the Indianapolis 500. And as Paul, you probably know, with his idol worship, if you would, of Jim Clark.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I have a picture was taken, he and I together at the Borg Warner Trophy, one of his wins. And I happened to have a photograph, I knew he liked it, of Jimmy Clark. And he just was, wow, that's so cool, Yeah, Jimmy Clark was definitely his hero.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't had a chance to give Franchitti a copy of my book, Eddie Sachs, The Clown Prince of Racing. And he really wanted it because he knew there was a lot of Jim Clark stories in that. And he would have thought I wrote a big check to him, which was kind of heady on my part, that he wanted it that much. And then he would tease Kanan that he got a copy of my book and he didn't get one or something. So that was neat. Well, win number 3 came in 2012, and just an epic race in a way. It looked like it could very well be Scott Dixon who was going to win that race. And Takuma Sato passes both. He gets by Dixon, and he actually gets past Franchitti as they start to go into turn 1 on the white flag 199th lap. And what happened, Paul?
Sato found how sturdy the walls were at the Speedway, and Franchitti figured out how to get to victory lane for the 3rd time.
It's amazing that they didn't take each other out.
I'll tell you what, that this last race kind of had a little reminiscence of that, whether or not you get somebody, we're going to try for that outside pass. But he backed off, didn't he? And but for Sato, he was going to stay there, and it just didn't work.
Right.
Guy's got guts.
Yes, he does.
Well, after I kind of thought there was his J.R. Hildebrand moment. He'll never win Indy again. That moment's never going to come in time. And then he was able to win the 2017 and then become a two-time winner. And in 2020, very realistically, Sato could be a three-time winner and still could win yet at Indy. He just goes very, very strong at Indy. So the Dixon could have very well won that race had those two touched and everything.
Right. Yeah,
so,
exactly.
But that'd been interesting. Where would the yellow have come out had they hit, and crashed? And would have Dixon got her, that would have been a la Tracy Castronettas all over again from 2002. What would have happened on that, knowing what you know, Bob? Had those two touched and they both crashed, Dixon running in third, would theoretically the crash should have triggered the yellow. Would that have ended the race? Or would Dixon had been able to go past them technically under the yellow?
Right. They would have finished the 200 laps. The race is for 200 laps.
So Dixon would have won it then. Kind
when
of
the
like
yellow
Weldon did when Hildebrand hit in the yellow.
Right.
Okay. So,
and unlike with the situation with Castronettas and Paul Tracy, which by the way, we got a lot of comments about that from our last show. But unlike them, of course, both of them were still moving. The yellow wasn't between them. Had Sato and Franchitti crashed, neither one would still be moving. And unlike Hildebrand, they wouldn't have been moving. It would have been a hard impact for both of them into the wall.
This is another Paul Tracy thing, Paul. This is addressed to you. And your expertise with
I like Paul Tracy, don't you?
Yes,
and I want him back in the booth.
Okay. With your expertise in Nathan hot dogs, if we could get Paul Tracy as one of our celebrities to do have a hot dog eating contest on our show, would you call it similar to you did the Nathan one? And a person asked me that. They wanted me to ask you, would you call a Paul Tracy eating a hot dog contest like you with all your expertise at that?
No.
I'm
kind of retired.
Then we got to come up with another book.
I'm definitely retired from that area.
So
and in fact, anyway, I think I'm still exclusive to Nathan's or something like that. I don't remember.
Okay.
Out here, they have a place called Pink's.
Mm-hmm.
Do not try that next time you two are in the LA area.
Been there.
I've heard stories John Candy would walk out with, a sack of them or something like that. They're that good and everything. So this was an interesting week. Something big is happening at the Speedway this weekend. Bob, you want to tell us about it?
Well, it's the SBRA and Vintage Indy. They've come two different organizations that kind of come together now that race, if you will, vintage cars of all types, fun for the fans. And that goes on from Thursday through Sunday. So it's a good opportunity for fans to go out and see some neat old cars, see some demonstration runs and see them not only on the road course, but they're going to be running on the oval as well. So there's, again, all types of cars from vintage Formula One cars to Formula 5000 cars.
Are you going to drive your Formula 5000 car at that venue, Paul?
Have I?
Yes, that'd be.
Oh,
that'd be quite
I'd
an
love,
attraction if you would return your
yeah.
Formula Ford
let-
days or something like
Let's just
that.
do that. Let's do this comparison. The power of a Formula Ford, what, maybe 120 horse, if that, and the power of a Formula 5000 car with that big humping V8 engine there. No.
No, okay, all right.
And there
We
are,
want us, we're gonna try to cattle prod you to get back into,
there are Formula Fords too, vintage Formula.
Yes,
Ford.
they
there
do.
you go, there you go.
And I'm
So,
definitely out there for that. That whole group, especially SVRA, has really done a magnificent piece of work in creating that series.
Yes,
And
they
Peralta, who put it together. It's worthy of coming and taking a look at it.
Yeah.
If you're a race fan at all, it'll kind of encompass you.
And
you
there
can
will be,
imagine. Go ahead, Bob.
there will be hundreds of cars there.
Yeah. And for them at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I mean, that's heaven.
Right.
So, we'll report on how that went, next week in our next episode. And there's a chance, if there's not a technical snafu, that we will be joined by a celebrity by the name of Mark Dill, who is probably the authority on the early history of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I was sharing some comments about that. He's going to talk about the Ray Haroon, Ralph Mulford, the debate and some of the other things. I think he's going to be a real great guest. If people have any questions they want to ask about the early years of Indy, send them to speedwayinsiders@gmail.com. And we look forward. And that's kind of going to be the template of this show. Every now and then we're going to get a guest celebrity to talk about various aspects of the Indy 500 way back and more contemporary, and have drivers and just interesting people out there. I was out there this May. I was trying to get with the gaming people, Caesar's book, to say that was an interesting new thing. And we can get
Well,
Caesar's on here, and if we can play comp at their casino, they'll be on, right? So
Would they even let you in? I mean, did you have enough money?
no, I didn't. And
That was kind of cool with all the ropes out and everything. It was a cool little area. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it was an interesting week at Road America. We had, we should say, a different pool winner for every race too. It was a storyline to show how competitive IndyCar racing is. And we will have an off week as far as IndyCar next week. So we'll be back though, and hopefully Mark Dill will be able to join us because you're going to like the stories. So this is Denny Miller in behalf of our friends, the Speedway Insiders, Paul Page and Bob Gates, saying Godspeed and stay safe, and see you next week. Bye-bye.